had a tape called "It Ain't Over Until I Win." There's much better ways to get wealthy. There's other ways of getting freedom. If you want a business, you need to be clear about why you want that business. For example, you have a desire to solve a challenge that nobody else is solving. Or potentially you want to solve a challenge that other people are solving, but not to the level that you can solve it. And you believe that you can solve that challenge better than anyone else. So you have a dream to solve a challenge. That's a dream. Nobody should be dreaming about meetings and reports and timesheets and cutting checks to employees that may not be doing work, and the headaches that come with all the things that a business comes with. The other aspect of dreaming for a business is, again, people confuse the actual desire, the thing that they really want, with equating it with starting a business. So maybe you don't want a business, maybe you want freedom, or maybe you want leisure, or maybe you want to do something more fulfilling. But there's a million things, other things that you possibly may want to do, but you've convinced yourself that having a business is the way you want to get it done. So let's just be clear, let's be honest with ourselves. Is it a business that you're dreaming for? Or is it something else that you're dreaming for and you think you need to have a business to get there? I am in no way eloquent on this subject as much as some other speakers. I would say, look for a few podcasts for Tim Ferriss. I don't know, do a search, Google it. But he talks about this often. The hacking of getting what you actually want versus taking the long route of doing something because you think that is the way to do it, to acquire the thing that's potentially right under your nose. So the obstacle is not an obstacle. And that's another good book, Obstacle is a Way by Ryan Holiday. Fantastic book, just read it this month. What are some of the best ways a company can get money? I grew up as an immigrant, so my parents were immigrants, and my dad didn't believe in debt, and neither do I for the most part. In some ways you can say that it's holding me back, but in other ways I would say that I feel absolutely wonderful about not being in debt. Like, I am free. I don't owe anyone. If I die today, no one's going to be asking my widowed wife and my children who just had their dad pass away, yo, your pops owes me some money. I don't owe anyone money, and if you think I owe you money, you should let me know, because I don't think I owe you money. But so what are the best ways a company can get money? I guess what you're asking about is funding. So if you're in the tech business, users are a good way of being able to get funding. If you have a certain amount of users, I know I've had a few friends that have been able to raise capital and get money based on that. Now, keep in mind that an idea usually these days is just not enough. Investors want to see actual engagement in users, not just the idea. They want a proven system. That's why companies like Instagram were bought for so much money, because they already had the user base. But the simplest and most basic way a company can get money is to sell things. Like, come on, like, get your shit together and sell your product or your service or whatever it is. Don't be asking for handouts if you don't need it. Something a couple of my good friends said to me that are doing much better than me in life, successfully in terms of business, when I asked them about getting loans, is that, and I've actually read this as well, is that getting a loan or getting financing without figuring out how to make and earn that money yourself could potentially be exasperating a problem that you have that you haven't solved yet. So, for example, maybe in my case, I'll be quite frank, there's a time in my career that I didn't have the leadership skills to run a large operation. I ended up having a staff of like 14, 15 people, and I was writing checks, asking myself, what did these people do? What did this person do in particular? And to be quite honest, it wasn't that person's fault or anybody's fault. It was my fault for not leading them effectively. And so that is just one example of, if I went out to get a loan, I would have just exasperated a problem that I had, which was lack of leadership, and I would have just blown it out of proportion. I know, I've seen this happen. I've seen people that continuously get funding, convincing their friends, family, and investors that they are onto something, but they don't have the leadership skills or the process skills or some of these other skills that is required to grow a company. So rather than asking yourself, how can I get money? Maybe a better question is, what do I need to improve in terms of as a business owner or as a leader? And again, money in itself is as a lot of wise people I've learned from have said, that is a measurement of how much value you're bringing to the world. And if you're bringing enough value, then the money should come in. Now, I am not in any way a tech guru making billions of dollars, at least not yet. That is a completely different story in terms of getting seed funding and investor capital. That I don't know. You're better off finding somebody else to answer. In fact, that's something I'm trying to learn myself. How do you amplify the message about your business? Amplify the message. I guess the first thing we should be considering is that you're at a point in your business life that you want to amplify it. And let's be honest, some businesses are rogue until they're ready to launch, and that's just completely fine. And then when they launch, they need very little. There's a good book by Peter Diamandis called Bold. It's the second part of Abundance. That is a book that I would read. There's many ways of doing that. Indiegogo and Kickstarter is another way of doing that. Doing good work is another way of getting your message out. I'm very, very fortunate that I have done almost zero cold calling. All the business that we've done is based on referrals and recommendations. And how we started, how we got the first job here and there was literally, I was doing a website for like $200. I didn't care. I was willing to do work for free. I was willing to do logos for free, websites for free. Whatever it took to do the work. There's another good word, do the work. Stephen Pressfield. That's like snorting lines of coke. If you've ever done that, I haven't, but I hear it's like that. This book, really short book, good book. Do the work. Just do the work. People will hear about you. People will talk about you if you're doing good work. I see this way too often. People who have great business plans but have shitty products and shitty service. They're not good at what they do. And that's a sure shot way of people talking about you and amplifying your message of you being shitty. So don't do that. In my belief, in terms of marketing and advertising, branding is, I'm a brand guy. I love branding. That's what I do for clients, primarily right now, currently in my life. And I would say branding is the big one. Branding will give you, in my opinion, the biggest return on your time, because it's something that you can build on. It's something that you own. AdWords is not something you own. It's paid space, and if your competitors get fierce and raise the buy-in, then it's going to cost you more to run ads. Facebook is not your backyard. You don't own Facebook. You don't own Twitter. You don't own Instagram. But branding is something that you can own for the most part, until you do something stupid and people hijack your brand, and now your brand is associated with something else, something that you're not interested in. But that's a whole different conversation. If branding is something that you're interested in, I recommend the book How Brands Become Icons. Wonderful book. Forgot the author. How do you measure success? This is actually an easy one for me, because this is something that I've been thinking about my whole life. There's two ways, in my opinion, that you measure success. One is simply, how much at peace are you with yourself in your life? How happy are you? If you're driving a fancy car and live in a big house and have a boat and a private jet, but you're fucking miserable, I don't think you're successful. That is not a person that I want to emulate and follow. If you're a super happy person and everything is going wonderful in your life, but you're not making rent, and your children hate you because they can't go to their school field trip, I don't think that's successful either, unless you're completely destitute and you're an immigrant and you're just making things, like your situation is what it is, then that's different. But if you're lazy and you can't get your shit together, that's not success either. And I had to make that point in terms of like being poor, because when we came to Canada, we were poor. My dad was a pizza delivery guy. I'm absolutely profoundly proud of that. My dad worked his butt off to go deliver pizzas. Yet we were happy at home, and yet we were never starving. So that's the first level of success for me. I mean, do you have the basics? And are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you healthy? The second aspect of success, and this one is very easy, is measurable success. If you say that you're going to hit these goals, and you continuously miss goals, how can you turn around and say you're successful? Now, there's stretch goals, and then there are honest to yourself goals. Stretch goals are things that you're not meant to hit them. For example, my mission in life is to provide value to the world. That's not a goal that I can measure in a way that I would say that I've achieved this, I'm done, I'm fucking successful. No, that is something that I'm continuously striving for. So let's not confuse measurable goals and things that define who you are and that you're continuously moving towards. Measurable goals are things like this. I promise to read a book a month. If you promise to read a book a month for 3 months in a row and you have not yet read one book, you're a failure in that sense, in that topic, in that point. If you say that you're going to hit the gym 3 times this week and you've hit the gym once or twice, not 3 times, you failed at your goal. So you are unsuccessful. You're not successful. So let's be honest about that and actually take a look at all the things that we say we're going to do. I will go out and meet women. I will search for a job by going through LinkedIn and applying. I will do this. When you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, that is an easy way of saying, I am not successful at this. I did not succeed in my goal. So that's how I measure success. What do you say and what are you doing? All right? This is your goal, and where are you? How important is a team? How important is it to have a team? It's another question, and a good question. Now, I would say that mom's leftover delicious Afghan dumplings. You have no idea what you're missing. How important is it to have a team? Well, I don't know. What's your mission? This is completely dependent on your mission. There are organizations and companies with teams of 5, 6 people who are able to command billion-dollar acquisitions. Then there are organizations that have 10,000 people on their team and they're going bankrupt. So I think the mission, to know what your mission is first, is important before you say I need a team. And another thing is that, is it you that needs a team or is it you that needs to be a part of a team? Because there's 2 different things. I think, and I'm in no way an eloquent speaker on this. I think Gary Vaynerchuk, who is one of my dear heroes in life, who I absolutely love and adore, I would spoon Gary. That's how much I love him. And him hearing this would probably make him want to never meet me. Far too often in our society, and this is something that I'm echoing from Gary V, is that we believe that we all need to be entrepreneurs. We all need to be the guy at the top. And if I could reverse time, I would actually not run my company. I wouldn't. I need to run my company now because I have a very important mission that needs to be accomplished. And I have a team that has invested in the organization, and wonderful people, both clients and friends and family, who have invested, and I'm not going to let them down. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. But if I was to think about it again, I think I'd make an absolutely amazing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in command. I have no problem taking orders from leadership that I believe in. My problem was job after job, especially through the school system. I just found that I didn't believe in the people who were giving me instruction, and therefore I believed in myself more than that, and therefore I started a business. So let's be honest. Once you know what your mission is in life, not the idea of having a business so that you can look good or have these fancy things, but once you know what your mission is, then maybe it makes more sense for you to join a team that's already on par to accomplish that mission or making that mission a reality. So how important is it to have a team? I don't know. I think it's completely it's an internal question that you need to ask yourself. Do you need to have a team, or do you need to be a part of a team? I'll say one more thing on this subject that I learned just recently, and it's, I'm gonna fuck this up. I'm gonna paraphrase it. Again, somebody else has said this much more eloquently. To move strong, move with many. To move fast, move alone. So when I look at the things in my life, I look at everything as a mission. When I want to get ice cream, I look at that as a mission. I want to get that ice cream, I want to go downstairs to the local convenience store and get that ice cream and get it fast and bring it up. That is a singular mission. I do not need a team. If I'm cleaning, for example, I would rather do it alone than have someone else do it, because I love cleaning and I don't think there's anyone else in the world that can clean as well as me. But if there are people willing to help, they need to get in line to be commanded. That is a situation where I will take leadership and I will want a team. But I would rather not have a team that's half-assing it than... Sorry, I would rather work alone than have a team that's half-assing it. That's something else that needs to be said. So, if you want to move strong, move with many. If you want to move fast, move alone. 3 more questions. I am running on. What if while accomplishing your goals, the if of doubt creeps in? What if I fail? What if this won't work? Okay, you know what? There is no what ifs. You're going to be thinking this on a regular basis. Like, there's no fucking way you're going to be running a business and not thinking, I might fail. A disaster is around the corner, or I'm going to die. This is common. This is not what if while accomplishing your goal, the if doubt creeps in. It's what will you do when the ifs, what will you do when this happens? Not if it happens. This will happen. If you don't believe you have the guts to persevere through the shit that's gonna come down when you're running your own show, you may be better off working for somebody. And I will say this from somebody who has gone through a lot of shit. I have had suicidal thoughts. I have gone through depression. I have gone through anxiety. I've seen my relationship with my beautiful wife almost torn apart. I've seen myself become a horrible father, a horrible son, a horrible human being in the process of running my own show. It's not if this happens, it's when this happens. I've had panic attacks that I felt like shooting myself, like jumping off a cliff. So what are you going to do when it happens is a better question. And so I would say, if you want to get into that game, you should be mentored. You should work under somebody who is going through it. If you have any hopes in hell that you want to run your own show, work for free at a startup. And do whatever it takes to be valuable in a startup, because you're not going to get it in a large organization. Large organizations are fat, slow, filled with bureaucracy, and filled with politics. You want to know if you can make it. See if you can make it in a month or 2 through a startup. I will tell you this: running your own show, most people can't intern for me, let alone run their own show. So figure that out first, and figure out if you have what it takes. And if you don't, that's okay. You could develop what it takes. And there are ways of developing that, like public speaking, dealing with your fears, taking ice cold showers, reading the book The Obstacle Is the Way by Ryan Holiday over and over and over, and reading every single book that he recommends. Those are some ways of developing the fortitude to tackle your own business. And hey, you know what? Something that I learned from Tim Ferriss. Don't say that you're going to take on this huge project with no end. This was on a subject that he was talking about on podcasts. that people, what stops people from doing something is this idea that it's endless and forever, and that they have no ability to do it, and that in itself is a big roadblock. Say you're going to do something for a period of time. So for example, if you want to start a podcast company, forget about that. This is what I learned from Tim. Rather than saying that, say, I'm going to do 5 podcasts, or I'm going to do 10 podcasts. That's enough. And say, I'm just going to do that and see how it works. I started a math course years ago when I was like 20 years old. Another lifetime ago. I'm glad I did that. It was a summer workshop. I realized I hated teaching kids that weren't interested in the subject matter, whose parents forced them to come to this kind of summer camp. Hated it. I hated having to be a teacher in that position. So test it out. Feel free to test it out. You got nothing to lose. And Gary Vee talks about this a lot, young people. Do it now while you're young. It's a lot harder when you're at my place in life, where you have kids, responsibilities, and other shit happening. How do you find your bearings when things are getting rough? To each his or her own. There are many ways. I have a system in place. Called PSME. It's my line of, it's what I focus on in order. P being the physical, S being the spiritual or the self-awareness, M being mental, and E being emotional. So what's the health of these things? There's a lot of very important, and so basically I should say this: if you're running your own show, you're not a typical employee. You're like a Formula One car. Okay, you're not a minivan. You're a Formula One car, and you're redlining it. And so you need check-ins more often, and you need to check your health, your spiritual, your mental, your physical, your emotional health on a regular basis, and make sure it's fine-tuned, so you're breaking down less. So when your bearings get rough, fix them before they get rough. And so if you're paying attention to that order, your physical being first, because it has a profound effect on everything else, then your self-awareness through meditation or prayer or whatever you want to call it, that's very big. That will actually enhance, strengthen the prefrontal cortex, allowing you to regulate your moods better, allowing you to deal with adversity better, cleaning up your system. Then mental, are you educating yourself? Are you giving your brain breaks? And then finally emotional. And so the emotional aspect is, the emotional aspect for me is a lot less important, because my emotions can easily be disrupted by something like eating too much fatty food or not getting enough sleep. So it's less important for me. It can sometimes be a good indicator if it's something that's continuously coming up, but I pay very little attention to my mood swings, which is something that I suffered from growing up, being an artsy kid and shit. But I pay a lot more attention to, am I physically healthy? Am I spiritually healthy? Am I mentally healthy? And if I can take care of those things in order, then in most cases I am emotionally healthy as well. That said, for me personally, have a few things when things are kind of out of tune, out of place, and I feel like I'm about to break down. One is I stop and I breathe. That's it. Listen to yourself and ask yourself, is what my brain thinking what I want it to think? Just observe the mind. Often there's chatter about the odds. Most often the chatter is about things that will never happen, but worries you don't need to worry about. Events that have already transpired, events that aren't happening yet. And so that meditation, and for me, I've been fortunate that I've invested quite a bit of time in meditation, and so I find my bearings quite quickly these days. It only takes me a moment. That said, aside from that, I do invest a lot of private time alone, reflecting and making sure I'm cleaning up my system. And then third, I would recommend experimenting in realities. You know, alcohol is a depressant, but experiment. then maybe a little bit of cannabis, then a little bit of M, then a little bit of shrooms. Stay safe, do your homework, but you'd be surprised, and absolutely surprised at the different perspectives that you will get from different substances. For example, eating too much fatty food, having too much caffeine, not enough salt, too much water. That'll fuck your system up. So I like to dabble in different realities and look at the same thing from different perspectives. There is no singular reality. And then lastly, how do you pick up the pieces after defeat? Les Brown, LESBROWN, had a tape called "It Ain't Over Until I Win." And I, at the age of 19, 20, depressed and destitute and just miserable, listen to that tape, God bless Les Brown, over and over and over and over. So personally, I don't believe there is defeat until several generations have passed. I will admit defeat when my grandchildren are destitute and living shitty lives. Until that day happens, I have a chance of winning. And so I would say the same thing about my father, who passed away way too young, in his early 40s, quite suddenly. That in many ways, I would say this, he was my hero, my savior. It's my stepdad, my dad. And he was everything to me. But he failed at some things. One being, he died too young for not taking care of himself. He left a young wife, young children. But his failure is not yet determined. His children and his wife have an opportunity to honor him and to honor his name and his energy and his effort that he has put into us. And that is what I live for. One of my main goals and missions in life is to show that my father was not a failure, that he did enough to build a foundation in a family of people who are providing value to the world. And if we can do that, if I can do enough, if I can provide enough justice, and if I can provide enough value, then my father is not a failure. And so the question of how do you pick up the pieces, you set up the game so that there are others who will continuously pick up the pieces after you're dead. Because Gandhi, MLK, Jesus Christ, Moses, Muhammad, Mother Teresa, all of these people have passed. But are they failures? Some of you, let's not go there, but you understand the point. Let's just stick to the point, not to the semantics, people. So that's one thing. That's the big picture. Let's keep the big picture in mind. Never forget the big picture. I do forget the big picture sometimes, but I have enough reminders around me to bring me back to that. And lastly, how do I pick up the pieces? After the small defeats, again, I think Ryan Holiday does a much better job explaining this. Just read his book, The Obstacle is the Way, and his new book is Ego is the Enemy. I haven't read it yet. I am like salivating to read it soon. I have some other books on my list before I'm going to let myself read it. It's actually kind of like a prize that I have, that if I read these other books, I get to read that book. So Obstacle is the Way in this case. But I would read that book. That book will help a lot more than what I can possibly say and sum up. That said, I hope you appreciate this, my man. And I call you Sherif of town, Sherif of Toronto culture. I love you lots. I hope this helps, man. I hope. Peace out. You can reach me at Kalactic on Twitter, Kalactic. It's Galactic with a K. Peace out, homies, and be amazing.